court matters now. The bail application of Garth Simpson, the farmer charged with the murder of KwaZulu-Natal teen Qiniso Dlamini, has been adjourned for judgment. The 17-year-old was shot dead, allegedly by the 68-year-old farmer, on the 28th of September. Dlamini was allegedly on the farm to collect his family's cattle who had strayed when he came across the farmer. Simpson accused him of trespassing before allegedly shooting him dead. eNCA senior reporter Dasen Thathiah is covering the story and he joins us now live. Dasen, hi there. So the bail application continued in Dundee, but Simpson is going to spend the weekend behind bars because it's been reserved until next week. So what happened in court today?
Well, so first I'll start with outside court. What was noticeable this time around was that there weren't as many people, many protesters, as there were in the previous appearance. Now, despite that, police were out in their numbers and they had barricaded the area off just to ensure that there was no trouble. But inside court, that was where we got a few more details about what transpired on that day. I've said, when speaking to you before, Sal, I've mentioned that there was a video that was central to this entire case. Now, that is something that is going to be instrumental during the trial, obviously after it's verified first. That was also the subject of the bail application, because even though both parties are referencing the video, what they are seeing in the video and what they believe transpired as a result of what they see in the video is markedly different. The common factor here is the cattle, and the cattle that was on Simpson's property, but exactly what transpired on that is the issue here. The state is saying that the murder was premeditated, and they're saying this because he left the scene and he went to his house and he fetched a firearm, he fetched a rifle, and he came back, and that's when the shooting happened. The state is saying that there was an intention there, and during that time he could have found other ways to resolve this issue. But now his defense is saying that he came under attack, and at the time that the boys were there were two others that had also joined, and those were quite aggressive. He says that he was assaulted during this entire ordeal. He had his teeth broken and he sustained other bruises, and it was during that altercation. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky. So he had the gun in the first place because he was arming himself against this attack that he was enduring, but the discharge could have been accidental. Now, that's the defense's version. Let's listen into an interview that I did with Anwar Jessup. He's the attorney representing Garth Simpson.
You've heard the evidence. He did indicate, and it's public knowledge now, that he was under threat. He was threatened, his farm was threatened to be burnt, and that he was threatened to be killed. And as a result of which he, for being safe, he took his firearm out and he kept it with him, in order to protect himself. And of course, when the persons that were on the farm were busy with the cattle, he obviously tried to say to them, listen, get away from there, don't interfere with the cattle. But he asked his son to record that video footage because it was in the hope that he would dissuade the would-be attackers, thinking that if they see that this video footage is going to be recorded, that video is going to be recorded, they would walk away from there. But unfortunately, it didn't happen that way. So as he got closer, you'll recall, I think there's video that has gone viral. He's fired a warning shot. And when he fired that warning shot, what does it signify to you? That he is saying to them, listen, please go away. But it didn't deter them. Unfortunately, as he got closer to try and get them away, things got out of hand, And if you looked at that video footage as well, and we emphasize that he was surrounded by people. He was being assaulted, and he was being, it was a scuffle, it was a wrestle. And he says that firearm was being wrestled away from his hand. And that's when the shot went off. So, one can argue whether it is self-defense or whether, they say, well, we say it's self-defense and then we're saying at the same time accidental discharge. That's not what we say. We say that he armed himself to protect himself. And that's what happened when he got close and they attacked him and they wrestled the firearm from him. That's why we argue it was an accidental discharge.
It's really interesting. His lawyer saying it was an act of self-defense. He armed himself, not as a sign that he was about to commit premeditated murder, but to protect himself. There's a lot to think about. And very interesting what you said, that both sides are saying that video sort of proves their point. So it's going to be really interesting what has to be considered when deciding bail. Is a part of that consideration whether Simpson will actually be safe if he is released? Because often these matters become very heated within the community within which they take place.
Definitely, and I'll get to that point in a second, Sal. I just want to pick up on what you mentioned about that video. Something else that came up today, and that was through the investigating officer, Bonginkosi Kampule. He mentioned that he believed that that video may have been tampered with. Now, this is his version, because he says that his evidence doesn't match what he saw or heard in that video. He says that, according to the evidence, there was only one cartridge that was collected from the scene, but if you watch the video, you hear 2 shots. So that is something that is going to be very important, and as I mentioned earlier, Sal, that's why that verification of that video is going to be that important. Now, coming back to the safety, yes, that is also a consideration. The state mentioned that, and I think I must say at this point that the state is not necessarily opposing his bail, but they had to give the court all of the factors to make that consideration, and one of those is the issue of how much attention this case has received, how many people have come through, and why, and the area being this tense currently. But Simpson's lawyer is saying that that's not something to really worry about, because if he is granted bail, he won't even be in the province. He'll be out of the province. He's secured a place, an undisclosed location, and that's where he'll be. But apart from that, they also claim that there are exceptional circumstances that indicate that he should in fact get bail. Let's listen to Jessup one more time, just explaining what those are in their opinion.
Yes, they make out that it is, if he was released on bail, there would be this huge public outcry, and there would be the threat on his life and so on. But we've also proposed that if he leaves the province, would they have an objection to that? The investigating officer finally conceded, look, if he's left the province and he abides by bail conditions, there wouldn't be a problem giving him bail.
Dasen, when is the bail decision expected?
Well, Sal, Simpson and I guess the supporters, his supporters, will have to wait until next week. The bail decision is expected to be delivered on the 21st of October. I believe that's a Thursday.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that update. Much appreciated. Coming to us live from Dundee in KwaZulu-Natal this evening, eNCA senior reporter Dasen Thathiah.